Now I shoot Sony and I have done for a number of years, but recently Canon sent me some kit to have a play with to see what I thought. And well, holy sh**. Okay, so long story short, back in September of this year when I was at the photography show in the UK, I had a meeting with Canon early morning before the show started. That meeting ended up with them saying they'd like to send over some loan kit for me to try out. Now that kit got to me through 𝗤𝗏 cameras. Thank you, Krish. And here's what was included. A Canon R5 and a bunch of RF lenses. 15-35, 24-70, a 50mm, a 70-200, the 85mm 1.2, very nice, and the 85mm f2 macro. Now, like I said, I am a Sony shooter, or rather, I shoot with Sony, and there is a difference because all of the kit that I have, I paid for with my own money, and I'm not one of their ambassadors. I've always said that the kit I use must be fit for purpose, and if I think about it, up until the COVID pandemic, I was more than happy because for portraits, my Sony kit did everything that I wanted. Well, apart from tethering into Lightroom, which is just ridiculous. Over the past few years, I've created what I think is my best portrait work using Sony. In particular, my World War II Veterans Portraits project. Without doubt, the best thing I have ever done. But when COVID hit, even though I was able to keep going out to create content because that's what I do for a living, I wasn't able to take portraits because we weren't able to mix. So I had to do something to keep creative, to feed this. And that, amongst other things, meant trying landscape and seascapes. And this is when I started to become frustrated. Now I'm going to explain more about this frustration in another video, but for now you kind of know why I was open to look at other brands. So let me just tell you what I thought of this Canon R5, which for now, sadly, has had to go back. But I tell you what, in the 7 days that I had it, I loved it. So let me just cherry pick just some of the stuff that really impressed. First of all, this thing feels solid. The build quality is outstanding. The buttons, the dials, not only feel like they will stand up to some abuse, they're just positioned in a way that makes sense. Now, when I compare the Canon R5 body to my Sony a7R4 body, the Canon, well, it doesn't just feel like a piece of technology. It feels like a solid camera. The camera fit great in my hand, and very quickly I was pressing buttons and turning dials without looking at the camera as I was doing it. Even the sound of the shutter sounds great. Using the camera with what can only be described as a brilliant touchscreen, as well as the menu button, the mode and cue buttons, took me right back to when I used to shoot with Canon. Everything just made sense. In fact, at no point did I put time aside at home to sit with the camera to get familiar with the menu. I just went out and just winged it, and I found everything that I needed. When I wanted something, such as changing the focusing method, the drive mode, the focus stacking, whatever, where it was and what it was called made sense, and it wasn't buried deep in a menu. At no point did I ever feel that I needed to set up like a custom menu where all my most used functions are placed into for easy access, because getting around that menu system was really, really quick and easy to find what I wanted. Now, there were actually specific things within the Canon that I desperately wanted to have a look at and try out, such as focus stacking, which Sony refused to have in all their cameras, unlike every other brand. Well, unless I go and buy the new Sony a7R5, which is definitely not going to happen when it would only be a software update in my a7R4 to get the focus stacking anyway. And also tethering, because Sony don't allow tethering direct into Lightroom. But then why would they, when it's only one of, if not the most popular bits of editing software used by photographers around the world? Huh? Now, I actually didn't get the time to use the focus stacking because the weather here in the southwest wasn't really playing ball, and I wanted to go out and take a landscape shot, but Krish at 𝗤𝗏 demonstrated it for me, and it was so easy to set up. You can actually set the R5 to take 999 photographs when focus stacking, which you'd never do, but it showed that taking 5 or 25 was crazy fast. The RF lenses are pin sharp at around f2.8, so you could take a landscape wide open, but let the camera take multiple shots with different focus areas, so you then end up with the sharpest possible image. Now, focusing is something that I am used to being really good with Sony, so it was interesting to see how the R5 compared. At the store, when picking up the kit, I grabbed a quick portrait of 𝗏𝐻, a really simple one light setup with the light from above and a silver reflector below. I wasn't behind the camera because I was holding the light, so I had to trust the R5 to nail the focus on 𝗏𝐻's eyes. And it did. And it did it really well. Honestly, every single shot on the money. Oh, and the detail. With the 85mm RF f1.2, just brilliant. And even though this is a, 45 megapixel sensor on the Canon compared to my Sony a7R4's 61 megapixel sensor, by no means did I feel any loss of detail. I also popped down to Lyme Regis and ended up taking some shots of surfers. Ideally, I would have wanted a 400mm or a 600mm lens as they were quite far out. But even with the 200mm lens I was using, the R5 was able to lock on and track them with no problem at all. Shooting in high-speed continuous, it just kept going and going and going, and that was in RAW and JPEG large. The buffer never even kicked in. Using the animal focus option worked a treat, with gulls flying around and also locking on to our friend's dog's eyes. Not easy when the dog has dark fur and dark brown eyes, but it did it, and it just did it really well. I actually set up the multifunction button so that with one press I would then be in video and the controls were what I'd previously set up. This made it so easy to go from photo to video and back again with just one press, so I was able to grab some video footage too. It just made the process of capturing content really enjoyable, and that's the truth. Time with the R5 made me want to take it out. It kind of reinvigorated me. I felt excitement about a camera that I've not felt for quite a while. So yeah, very, very impressed. In fact, I loved it. And I only scratched the scratch on the surface for what the R5 can do in the few days that I had it. So Canon, way to go. But the question is, will I be switching? Will I be moving from Sony to Canon? Well, I've been giving it a lot of thought these last few days, and I've come to the conclusion that the only answer can be